The LEC is quite possibly the most chaotic and entertaining league that Riot has to offer when it comes to League of Legends, and it all started back in 2013. Originating as a counterpart to the newly souped up North American LCS, the EU LCS would begin playing in Cologne, Germany. And despite the LCS having a studio built for their production, the EU LCS would be playing in Cologne because they would be using an old ESL studio that they would rent out for their games. And even though it was a pre-existing ESL studio, there were still a few holes to cover, quite literally. There were times where servers would heat up to unplayable levels, the AC would occasionally fail to work, leaving everyone inside sweating, and there was actually a time where the coolant just completely burst and poured water all over the casters during the game. So to say that Riot favored the LCS over the EU LCS would be quite accurate. The EU LCS time slots to broadcast the game even played second fiddle to the LCS time slots, much to the dismay of the European fans. However, despite the occasional organized chaotic messes of the league, the fans, players, and casters alike seemed to really just own it. The passion for European League of Legends certainly shone through as players and fans began to embrace the quirkiness that made their league so special, and that would be something that we'd see come into play later on down the line. Not to mention, by this point Europe had already claimed one world championship and had recently just experienced the powerhouse of Moscow 5, which had only been stopped by their CEO running into this little thing called the law. But regardless, the European League may have been treated lesser than the LCS, I mean sure, but the fans and players showed that their passion for the game was strong, and that would ultimately begin to cultivate a following. And as long as the teams still remained competitive internationally, fans could really just leave the production value aside since they knew they would be treated to some of the best gameplay the world had to offer.
Telecom are just rolling through. The Nexus turrets are potentially going to go down. Only Lulu really there to stop them. The second Nexus turret fall, they're going to focus in on the Nexus itself. And Samsung White are the 2014 World Champions.
Okay, so the EU LCS may not have been as internationally competitive as they were before, but during the next season they would be getting a new studio, so hopefully the production value would be going up. However, despite having this new studio, the EU LCS casters and production teams still had a hard time getting their best ideas out there due to the restrictions of their budget and capabilities. But the good news is Riot finally managed to fully acquire a new studio in Berlin, Germany for the EU LCS to find some fresh footing and hopefully a breath of fresh air. Now that the EU LCS had their own dedicated studio to produce their content, the casters, players, and fans all seemed to really enjoy this new opportunity to really show what Europe was all about. And by combining this new higher level of production with new and upcoming talent, the region began to flourish again, gain new viewers, and overall do better. Not to mention, Europe began to once again have a pretty strong showing within the international scene, allowing fans to really feel that they had a team they could root for. Now in 2016, teams such as Vitality and G2 would enter the league bringing in fresh faces, however the EU LCS once again began to struggle with their viewership. And according to the then EU LCS caster Quickshot, a large part of that was due to their experimentation of best of 2 series and best of 3 formats that didn't seem to mesh well with their target audience. Another struggle that the region began to face was the resurgence of their second-handedness to the LCS. The LCS began to grow financially, and that increased the number of imported players, and who better to import than English-speaking Europeans? Some of the more notable European stars that moved over to North America include the likes of Fevivin, Sven, and Bjergsen. Now, even though Europe losing some of their star talent was certainly an issue, remember how earlier I talked about how Europe embraced their quirkiness? Well, it was time to kick that into overdrive. Not only did Europe begin to come into their own, but they once again began to show up pretty big on the international stage. And now that the EU LCS had their own crazy and unique style, as well as teams that could do pretty well internationally, it was time for them to no longer be in the shadow of the LCS, and they rebranded themselves to what we know and love today. Introducing the LEC. And now that Europe could truly stand out with their bright colors, high level of quality content, and strong performances, they began to draw the eyes of the international audience. And with this new increasing viewership, the LEC went wild with their production, introducing rap battles, electronic, and whatever this is. Europe at this point truly had its own identity. Not only did they win MSI and place second at Worlds that year, but they were now the fun region. And the viewers could tell that the players, casters, and production team were having a blast with it and looked like they'd rather be doing nothing else.
Introducing the LEC Playoffs Playset. Take control of your favorite players from the comfort of your own home.
Whoa, I'm gonna Tristana jump into 5 people. That's so cool. I'm gonna throw a 10k gold lead at Elder Dragon.
Now remember, Mr. Goldberg thinks all the LEC teams are just as good as each other. He doesn't pick any favorites.
And even during the pandemic, the LEC still held strong with their viewership, which is something they may not have been able to do just a couple years prior. And despite not having the greatest international showing in both 2021 and 2022, the region itself still had a really high level of competition to get fans excited. For the first time in years, neither G2 nor Fnatic would place top during either split, and rather it would be the dominant Mad Lions who rolled through 2021. And even though G2 would win the spring split once again in 2022, a new face would be welcomed to the top of the LEC with Rogue winning the summer finals. And plus, I think we can all agree that Ottawamne deserved that trophy. And even though season 2023 is yet to kick off for the LEC, there have still been some pretty major changes to how the league's going to be played. First off, the region will still be referred to as the LEC, but instead of Europe, the E will now stand for EMEA, which means Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And with the complete overhaul bringing in a new 3-split system, teams will need to remain competitive in order to play in best of 3 and best of 5 series, or they'll be cut early. And though the results are still yet to be seen on how this will turn out, I do think there's a lot to get excited for this year of the LEC. I am truly grateful that you did take some time out of your day to check out this video, and if you did enjoy it, consider subscribing or even just leaving a comment down below on what you're most excited for. And yes, I am actually someone who reads the comments and responds to them. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day or night, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Later!